what happens is the woman has started so far back, it's very difficult to catch up.
But is that uniform across
That
the world? Arab, non-Arab, Western,
that's correct.
Eastern?
That's correct. So in the United States, there was recently a study done by an organization called Catalyst, and they looked at men and women coming out of MBA programs, and we're seeing this trend really happening everywhere. Women are not asserting themselves as much right from the start. And so it puts them on the wrong foot. And while we help them progress, and there's many reasons and obstacles and opportunities, if you don't get off on the right foot, it's a problem.
But I know also that you'll be sitting on the next panel, and you will be taking this point specifically in more detail. That's with your fellow panelists later on. Piki, let me ask you about your experience working in the Arab world now. You've been posted to Lebanon for about
1.5 years now. Yeah.
1.5 years. Have you found that it is different? First of all, your perception as a woman CEO for a major bank in the Arab world, is that different from your perception outside the Arab world?
Let me just go back a little bit in terms of my experience and background. I've worked in Australia, which I would say is representative of the Western world, and worked in Asia, Northeast and Southeast Asia. And now I'm here in the Middle East, 1.5 years now in Lebanon. If you ask me personally, perception of a female CEO and being the first female CEO of a commercial bank in Lebanon and the first for Standard Chartered Bank in the region, I have to say that I don't see much differences in terms of the treatment that I'm getting vis-a-vis a fellow CEO who's a male.
So is that treatment from within your
within the banking,
or is
within the banking community?
Perception of your audience?
I think it's within the banking community of how they see me and receive me. What they're looking for me is, what do I bring to the table? So to me, that is equal opportunity in itself, based on meritocracy. What do you bring from Asia and from the Western world to benefit the banking industry in Lebanon? And I think what I see as a benefit is being the first female CEO in Lebanon is then I can actively promote gender diversity in the banking industry. I have not been denied any access to anyone that I wish to see in the course of my business dealings. And I think that's a fantastic
Let me ask you this question then. If you were posted to London, would we be having this conversation? Would we be talking about promoting gender diversity?
Maybe in a different context. I think for if you're comparing Lebanon, say, to London, London would probably be more used to having a female CEO at the senior or a senior female person. But in Lebanon, we have senior females at senior management, but not necessarily at the general manager or CEO level. I'm usually the only female face in gatherings. And so in that perspective, I think it's quite an eye-opener that Lebanon is actually a country that opens itself to gender diversity. Maybe it is just about taking that first step, taking advantage of the opportunity.
Nisreen, you're nodding your head listening to promoting gender diversity, and when Piki was talking about what women are bringing to the table and taking a position based on merit. You found that experience as well in Oman. But again, Oman is in comparison to its neighbors, let's call it, is actually a for-women business environment. And did that necessarily have to come straight from the top, from government, to empower women or to give women that bit more of a space in the business environment?
I think, if you allow me, it's all about vision, and then committed policies and legislations that supports that vision, and basically the ruler vision, of course, and then the plans that take care of the execution or the implementation of such vision. And in Oman, we are blessed to have a vision of His Majesty, if I may share, if I may quote his statement last year in November, when he addressed the convening council in November 2009, by saying to exclude women from playing meaningful role in the life of their country amounted, in essence, excluding half of the country potential. And in another incident, he says, we are convinced that the country, in its blessed march, needs both men and women. No doubt, it resembles the bird in relying on both of its wings to fly high in the horizons of the sky. So how can a bird manage if one of its wings is broken? I think this sends clearly the vision of His Majesty, and of course the rules and regulations that have stipulated, that paved the ground for such vision.
Yeah.
And again, if I may share with you the basic law of Oman, which again, I will quote some of the basic law that is supportive of women empowerment. It says, justice and equality of opportunities for Omanis are the pillars of society. And these are guaranteed by the state law. And again, education is a cornerstone for the progress of society, which the state fosters and endeavors to spread and make available to all.
Christine, why did you go into why are you an entrepreneur? Why aren't you employed by a major corporation? Why aren't you sitting on top of a big company? Did anything stop you? Was it a lifestyle decision?
Actually, I just want to go back on the discussion. There are two things I would like to share. First, I was very privileged with Duncan to work in the US, to work in Germany and Italy. And with Samsung now, I'm working in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar. And in the three cultures, US, European, and the Arab, at some point they forget that you're a woman and they start dealing with you as a business person. And depending on different cultures, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others. But surprisingly, it was faster in Saudi Arabia to forget that I was, the first approach is always a shock, when they have to deal with a woman. But after some time, they forget that you're a woman and they really address you as a business person, very tough, and I like this. And in Germany, it took more time for them to accept the fact that I was a good manager, irrelevant if I was a woman or a man.
Very interesting. Why do you think that is? Is it preconceived perceptions?
I'm not sure why, but the idea is that it takes, sometimes it takes time for people to just forget about genders, and this is how things are moving. The second thing I would like to share is I was part of a US Arab Businesswomen Conference. We were 50 US businesswomen and 50 Arab businesswomen. First we met in Jordan, then in Washington, D.C. And it was extremely interesting. We were expecting to find plenty of differences, a lot of things that takes us apart. And we were very surprised to see that at the end of the day, we're all facing the same challenges. We're all trying to balance our business life and our mother's life and spouse life. And so the discussion where we were really discussing the same thing and talking the same language. We only found two small differences between the US and the Arab world. First, in the US, the scale is bigger. Automatically things grow faster and you can move very fast, whether an entrepreneur or in the corporate world.
Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and leaders that changed the course of history for their communities were not shy in standing up to power and saying that structural mechanisms need to be set in order for them to get an equal opportunity to succeed. It's not aib to tell governments and to tell men and to tell the private sector that it is unacceptable that in the United States of America today, men and women don't make equal pay for equal work. It's not aib that when we poll young women, one of my old colleagues, Marcus Buckingham, was mentioned. I'm a senior executive at Gallup. I didn't leave to go on Oprah Winfrey with Marcus. I'm still at Gallup. When we ask young women in the Arab world, do you have access to finance for your small to medium-sized enterprises that you are building? They are less likely than young men to say that they have access to finance. They are less likely than young men to say that they have access to markets. They are less likely than young men to say that they are respected by the men within their society. This narrative about just forget about it and achieve and make it happen, that's what pioneers do. I'm 31 years old. I was one of the first people that was given an opportunity in the American public square to speak on behalf of American Muslims. That was not given to me. I assure you, I took it. But for me to tell all other generations that they must again take the same thing, then we're just reinventing the wheel. If the pioneers that were on this stage are not willing to admit that there is structural inequity in the opportunities that men and women are afforded in this world, not just in the Arab world, then there will never be a change in the disposition of women. There will never be a change in the advancement of women. We need to stop talking about culture. Our culture is Khadija. Our culture is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who came and said, don't bury your infant daughters. Stop talking about culture. We need to talk about mindset. We need to talk about the paradigmatic ghetto that exists in the mind of men and those that have power, that has convinced